Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hi from beautiful upstate New York. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's that time of year, the time of year where we feel good cheer in our hearts, the spirit of giving and loving. There, welcome. That's it. That's all I got.
You're on a Christmas roll.
Yeah, how are you, Costume? All good?
I'm doing good. Yeah, everything's good.
Everybody seemed to love the meme of you
On the squirrel.
on the squirrel. This would never happen to Kastuba. That is our new hashtag. That's my new T-shirt. Everybody wants to see that as a T-shirt, Kastuba.
If I really want it, I suppose you could.
I'd wear it. If anyone doesn't know, the squirrel means when Raghunath goes off on a tangent, like a dog would chase a squirrel.
Yeah.
And so I tend to do it a lot. And so the meme was that Kastuba was now riding the squirrel. And we were saying that all the crazy mishaps that happened to Raghunath would never happen to Kastuba. And so the saying is, this would never happen to Kastuba. So it was very, very good. Leslie Venti made that meme. I was pretty impressed with it myself.
She's the new meme-stress.
Meme-stress. Who comes up with these names? Meme. Like one person made up that name and we're all following it. Isn't that interesting?
In case you didn't understand what a squirrel is, Raghunath is now demonstrating.
Can you look up origins of meme, Mara? Just look that up, please. I'm just curious.
Okay.
I'd like to get some closure. I find it fascinating that one random influencer makes up a name and the whole world follows it. I understand if it's like Apple and they came up with the idea of a mouse or a desktop. Okay, it's Apple. We're going to follow it. But meme? No one did that. Anyway.
It comes from the Greek mimema, meaning imitated. It was
The Greeks made it up? The Greeks made it up?
It was introduced in 1976 by British evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins in his work The Selfish Gene.
No,
So it goes back a lot longer than we were maybe thinking.
No,
But what does that have to do with like a meme that we have nowadays?
I'm getting to that part.
Wait, Thomas Harry Bowl. He's got all the answers. Mara, you're being replaced by Thomas Harry Bowl.
He beat you to it, man.
He's up. He's on. He's waiting by Wikipedia. He's got his computer open to Zoom, another computer open to Wikipedia, and he's like, "I want her position."
He's hungry. You see?
He's hungry.
He can have it. He'll probably do better than me. He probably knows focus.
He can have it.
Give up your high-paying salary. Mara.
That was good.
Oh, Chris.
So what is it? Read it from Thomas Harry Bowl.
He says digital age sense of an image or snippet of video or text considered witty or incisive that is spread widely and rapidly by internet users.
Okay, but that's a definition, but it's not the origin.
Yeah.
You're still on this, man.
You're still. Yeah, Thomas Harry Bowl doesn't quite have the gig. He just thought any answer will get me Mara's job. It won't. You need the right answer.
Okay, so the Greek word means imitation. So
Okay.
Richard Dawkins in the 76 book shortened it to meme
No.
from the Greek word of imitation.
Yeah.
So
that
in
was
Dawkins'
76.
sense of This is going to take a while.
I forget it. You got to do some research.
This was a bad squirrel here. Okay.
Yeah, it was. There's no quick answer for
Do we
this.
have any announcements?
There is a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at noon today.
Okay.
And there's no show on Sunday.
Show on Sunday. And
No show on
we haven't.
Sunday.
I don't think we've been getting any Christmas questions in, so we're just gonna have a normal Q&A on Sunday, unless on Saturday.
We have been getting other questions in.
Okay. But at least one good Christmas question would be nice.
Yeah, it's something about maybe the three kings of Orient.
Oh, yeah.
You know. By the way, because of that song, I always mistakenly thought the kings were from Orient R.
On what?
We three kings of Orient are bearing gifts. We travel so far. So I thought the three kings were from a place called Orient R.
Roghunath, let's move on to the nugget.
Get it?
Okay, yeah.
We three kings of the Orient. They're from the Orient. They're from the East. I thought they were from Orient R.
That's like
They're
a
from
planet
Orient
in Star
R.
Trek or something?
Bearing gifts. Yeah, it's like some planet. All right, here's a nugget, Prabhu.
Let's hear it.
This is from Carl Jung.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loves him, right?
I don't know.
If our religion is based on salvation, our chief emotions will be fear and trembling.
Mm-hmm.
If our religion is based on salvation, our chief emotions will be fear and trembling. If our religion is based on wonder, our chief emotion will be gratitude. What do you think about that, Christopher?
I like it a lot.
You
I mean, I
like
think
it?
there's a lot of
You
truth.
like
in
it,
yeah.
say it.
Well,
You like
you know,
it, say me like it.
Roghunath, just try to move this towards
just won't say it.
something of substance today. Okay, something of substance. I like it because, there are different motivations that we can have, and in bhakti, the idea, it really, in one sense, all it is about is purifying one's motive, right? What do we want in life? What are we looking for in life? And a lot of people are just looking for the enjoyment of the senses. And then that could be elevated a little bit, and it could be elevated more. And it can come to the stage of one wants, and this is what many people think, like the goal of Vedanta is actually moksha or liberation, or here you could say salvation, like freedom from the
pain of existence.
Yeah. And so if that's my chief motive in my spiritual practice, I just want to become free. I just want to, I think, of course, this is in a Christian context that Carl Jung is speaking about it. And it's like, I either go to hell or I have the chance for salvation, and I want salvation. And
Don't you wish Carl Jung knew about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the worship of Krishna, deep
I don't
study
know
of the
so
Bhagavad
much about him, honestly. I mean,
I always feel like,
very
man, if
insightful.
this person knew about the Krishna consciousness, they'd be a devotee.
Well, isn't it? When we had Shyam Sundar Prabhu on, he was talking about that time in London, and he said he was just bringing one person after another to meet Prabhupada. And he also said, I believe it was at that time that he was doing all this research on different philosophers and bringing them to Prabhupada, and they would discuss him. And that eventually got made into the book called Dialectic Spiritualism.
Which, if you want to learn, let's just share that a little bit. If you want to learn about, even if you don't know much about Western philosophy, there is a book of Shyamasundar, Haryagriva, and a few early disciples asking questions about different philosophers. Like this, Descartes believes this, and Aristotle taught this. What do you think about that, Prabhupada? And he would juxtapose the philosophies against each other and see where they jived and where they totally didn't jive. Such a cool book, huh? Dialectical spiritualism.
I've heard that sometimes the real, like the philosophers weren't entirely accurately represented in the conversation.
Well,
so the book was criticized for that, but I don't know how much that's true or not. But still, it's fascinating to read in any case.
Yeah, I mean, they're teenagers. They weren't like master philosopher, major, PhDs themselves. But I think I learned a lot from reading that book.
Although Haryagriva was a PhD. Although you're saying he was there at that time?
I think Haryagriva asked those questions too.
Okay. Yeah. So in any case, but here it's saying that what is our motive? If my motive is just to become free or to enjoy heavenly pleasures, right? And that's my conception of salvation. I don't want to go to hell, then it is true. It's like, well, my days are running up, and I'm going to either have a completely horrible future, or a completely wonderful one, and I'm fearful, right?
Yeah.
But that's not really. There's no real love there, and it doesn't facilitate love. If love is our nature, if love is what we're designed for, then wonder, is such a more, it facilitates it so much more, right? And when we read 10th Canto Bhagavatam, we see it's one thing after another. Like,
it's wonderful.
Krishna's devotees, they're feeling wonder. They're experiencing these very very deep sense of wonder, like again and again, and it does. He says, then our chief emotion will be gratitude. And we can feel that not only like in this salvation, but even that is our salvation, right? To feel that wonder, that when we wake up.
I would say that wonder and gratitude is a massive part of what we do to be successful in bhakti. All the time. As a matter of fact, it's almost a prerequisite to make advancement in bhakti. Is you have to be filled with gratitude. You can't hold any resentment, and you've got to be always appreciating what you have. That's how we move in this current.
And because in bhakti the means and the end are the same, what it leads to is just more gratitude and more wonder. Because
I always wondered like what you do in heaven anyway. It's like if your goal is salvation, I want to get rid of the pain. Well, what am I supposed to do in heaven?
I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know
like
how.
That? You ever ask that question?
Well, I think many people do, and I don't know if any Christian mystics wrote on that. As far as I know, maybe Thomas Haribol can help us with this. I don't know how descriptive it gets on that level, but certainly it does in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, where there's great detail.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl Jung.
I had a lot of people reach out to me yesterday, Prabhu.
Hold it. Well, Thomas Haribol, just once. Thomas Haribol says not much described other than eternal worship.
Okay. That's sort of bhakti. Just a little vague, but eternal worship.
Not a detailed presentation.
Like what is worship?
People reached out to you yesterday, bro.
A lot of people reached out with a lot of love.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Of people are struggling in the holidays. It's one of those things where 12-step people reach out to me too, recovery people. They're just like, this is a very tough time. A lot of people going home for the holidays, these family of origin issues come up, this, broken family containers, and how to deal with children, who gets the children on what holiday. It was a very, like, people were writing in and saying, I feel for you, but I'm also going through this. That was a lot of things, And so all those people like me who are having I call it the Fonzie Christmas. You know what I mean by that? The Fonzie Christmas is, if you know the TV show we grew up with, Fonzie was like the cool guy. Everyone thought he was cool. And then Richie Cunningham was the all-American guy, a little nerdy. And then he went to see Fonzie, what Fonzie's doing on Christmas. And he was sitting in the garage, where he fixes cars. He was a mechanic.
Heating up a can of ravioli and a can of beans by himself on Christmas. So for all those people having a Fonzie Christmas out there with me, yes, well,
I appreciate the gesture.
See our home as the Cunningham home, Raghunath. And
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. You are the Richie Cunningham, and you are the Howard Cunningham.
Cunningham.
And Mara, you are the who's Mara?
I thought she was Joni.
Joni. Yeah. Bobby Marchand and her parents, they're taking me in on Christmas.
Okay.
They're baking, cooking, healthy vegan things, and I'm bringing a can of ravioli as my offering.
Gita Priya will be your Mrs. Cunningham if you come down here.
Thank you, Chachi. Okay.
Ready?
Everybody from this new generation has no clue what we're talking about, but everybody a little older than 45 is laughing their butt off. Okay. And the Europeans are like, what the hell are they talking about? Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Before he started the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesh Vabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmadatamnena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text
33.
33. We're in it. We're in the thick of it.
Okay, finally.
Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine, and who therefore engages and dedicates his activities and all his life, everything unto me without cessation. Key word, without cessation. Key phrase, right?
Sure. Yeah, what is it? Ahoitaki apratiyata. It must be unmotivated and uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted.
Yeah. Let's you know
That's
what?
a problem. I got bhakti, but it's interrupted on a regular basis.
Then it's not going to be. You're not.
It's not going to satisfy the self.
It's not going to satisfy the self. It's just like when you soak something. You know, like it's something. Some things need to soak in something for a long time before they become saturated. You know, complete satisfaction of the self. You know, it becomes saturated in it. Otherwise, it doesn't really. You know, it doesn't really take effect.
Like
and
what?
So,
like an olive?
I don't know, like, you know, anything that
like
you drop in water and you pull it out and the whole thing hasn't, you know, things. Okay. Sometimes things have to marinate for some time, right? Yeah. And so we need to marinate our mind in devotional service, you know.
I like that, marinate it.
Yeah, for it to
and that's sort of like what years of bhakti do. You put in your time. It becomes what you are. Mm-hmm. It becomes very normal. It's a new normal. The new normal of 2022 is bhakti mind.
Okay.
That's the new normal.
Why don't we just go a little bit back, because I don't think we fully covered the previous verse. We began discussing it yesterday.
You always bring us backwards to go forward. Have you noticed that?
Sometimes you need the context, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So
what
we're
number?
hearing just the previous verse. What did we just read now?
33. You want to read 32? It's better than the Brahmanas.
Yeah, because we were hearing this gradation in the different jivas, and it began with inanimate objects, and then it came to like entities that had sense perception, and then it came to human beings.
And then better than that are the Brahmanas who study the Vedas, and then there's ones who are pure devotees who execute bhakti. Let me just read that.
Well, no, just hold on one second. So we discussed that within human beings that are living according to Varna and Ashrama, right?
Yeah.
Human beings that understand that are kind of like participating in this very progressive understanding of, you can say, personality types or different psychologies, and each one using their strengths, offering, you know, making an offering from them, counteracting their weaknesses through following this dharma, that's still higher. And then amongst those divisions within that, the Brahmana is considered the best. And then, well, why is the Brahmana the best? And you look at the qualities of the Brahmana, right? The Brahmana is situated in Sattvaguna. It means that the influence that they're taking in from the world that they're living in is not sending them down very negative, or let's say, I mean, we could say negative, but we can say it's not taking them in patterns of thought that cloud their thought, right? And that lead towards greed, or leads towards, you know, destruction, or lead towards conflict, and so on. That Sattvaguna breeds in them a type of satisfaction and contentment and clarity, so that they can really understand what is what. And you need those people, and we were discussing this yesterday, right? You need those people to give some guidance, you know, because the fact is the vast majority of us, you know, we're just fighting with each other, and we're destroying our homes, and we're destroying our bodies, and we're destroying the earth, and we're just a mess. You need intelligent people to come in and just help us understand what's important and what's not important. And that's what the Brahmana does, right? Because they're living such a selfless life, such a simple life, such a pure life, because they're investing their minds in contemplating wisdom. They bring so much. They can help everyone in that society with the clarity.
Even intelligence has to be harnessed by the Brahmanas. Otherwise, intelligence are like, oh, you got problems with bugs on your tomatoes. My intelligence has come up with this pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide. Okay, well, let's get rid of the pest. But what do we do with all these sides on our soil, and it's affecting our water table now? What are we going to do about that? Don't worry, we've created something for that. We created a water filter. So there needs to be some type of Brahmin who's not myopic, not short-sighted, sees this bigger picture and where we're going, what we need to do. So individuals are all different. We're trying to find some. How are we connected? We are not connected. We have different habits, good and bad habits, progressive habits, degrading habits. Not all people are the same. I'm sorry to say that, but we are uniquely spiritual beings who sometimes choose to act on their spiritual proclivities and sometimes just neglect them and act according to their baser natures. And because of that, they end up degrading themselves and everybody around them. Then there's cultures that promote those uplifting activities and cultures that are degrading. So cultures are also can be good or bad or somewhere in between. And so we're trying to act on the individual, right? We're trying to change ourselves first. I'm not worried about changing my culture. I'm worried about changing myself, and that will affect my culture.
But if we're all working together, then we'll have a much easier time of it. Right? But I like the example that you use of, like, say, pesticides, right? Because it does seem like, well, hey, here's a solution, right? Here's a solution. We have a problem. Here's a solution. But a wiser person can look at this and say, I remember once I was at a talk by a very popular speaker on, I don't know, I guess you could say Eastern thought, right? And
name names.
Deepak Chopra. You want to name Deepak Chopra? And he was asked about, like, modern technology, and he gave an answer that, in my opinion, had some truth, but I was like, come on. Like, he just gave a full-on endorsement for it, saying if it's used in the right way, then it's good, right? Like, all of these developments, if they're used in the right way, it's just a question of how you use them. And there's a truth in that, right? It's, that
when we say that utility is the principle,
utility is the principle. How you use something, which determines whether it's moral or immoral, let's say, right? Whether it's helpful or harmful. So that's true, but also, can't we see that, like, we've created things that we now, quote unquote, need that we actually don't need? And everything that, like, oh, the computer, greatest thing in the world. Now just watch all the problems that it starts to cause, right? Sure. So, like, is all this, in a deeper sense, could a wiser person look at this and say, this technology can be used for good or bad, no question. But really, the healthier way for us to live as a people is a simpler way, right? And people used to live without these things, and they didn't go completely psycho from, like, all of the, the overload that they're getting and destroying the earth to do it. Yeah, what does it take to create the computers? The minds that they have to dig in, and the people that are doing it are all getting cancer, and then what it does to our own minds, and what social media is doing to our minds and to our relationships, and it just goes on and on and on. Actually, it would be better if we just lived a simple life, grew food, and traded it with one another.
Why don't you move up here and grow food with me, Kostuba? Let's grow some food.
If I thought we could actually do it, I'd seriously consider it.
Mara's got a thriving garden every year. She's growing tons of stuff.
Yeah, she's good.
Got a green thumb.
The Brahmana, that's the thing. They can see these patterns. They're seeing a little deeper. Someone might see, oh, this pesticide is good. The Brahmin already understands. I'm seeing red flags here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it gets rid of the bugs.
Yeah.
The bugs don't come.
Yeah. And so, we were talking about Brahmanas yesterday, and again, just talking about this Varnashram system, which, the fact is, if you hear about it almost anywhere, you're going to hear negativity. It's going to be framed as the modern caste system. It's going to be framed as a tool of oppression. It's going against everything that Americans believe in terms of categorizing people in different ways. And
you can become whatever you want to be.
Yeah, right. And so, even if that's true, what am I? We'll find that I fit in one of the four, in one way or another. But so then what this society does is it recognizes our psychologies. And we were saying yesterday, you could say there are three grades of leaders in this society. They're the let's say the business leaders. Those are the employers, right? Business administrators. And then you have the political rulers, you could say, or the people that establish law and protect people through the establishment and the enforcement of law. And those are the Kshatriyas. Both of them are leaders in the sense that they are entrusted with the care of others, right? Like the Vaishya, the business leader, and of course, in the ancient context, that business was primarily agricultural, right? And so they're meant to care. And when you hear the descriptions of what their responsibilities are, it's to care for their workers and to care for their animals, right? That's what they did. They carried that burden of responsibility. They made carrying out that responsibility their offering to God. And when you do that, you can begin to develop love of God through that. That becomes your path of yoga. The warriors, the Kshatriyas, the social administrators, the law keepers, and so on. They understood that through law and enforcing law, we need to protect the people. If we see, criminals, I'm willing to deal with it. I'm willing to risk my life to deal with it to protect others. And that was their dharma, right? But both of them are advised by the Brahmana, who has the deepest insights. And even though the warrior is powerful and handsome and huge and, famous and everything, when that wise person walks in the room and he may, weigh, 110 pounds and, and just be, like have none of the, that kind of,
bravado.
Yeah, bravado. Let's say that the warrior has, but the warrior recognizes this person I admire for their wisdom, and then I hear from them. And I was thinking, even in the modern context, within modern, let's say, Vaishnava circles or Bhakti circles, even within ISKCON, there's a lot of debate about what is Varnashram and can it be applied? Should we be trying to recreate it, or is it something that we know just focus on the essence of chanting and hearing? What is its value? What would it look like if we tried to recreate it in our modern context, and so on? But I think you can see aspects of it, and you could see how we could bring in positive aspects. But you look at a person like, and we spoke about him some weeks ago, Stephen Covey, right? Now, what is Stephen Covey? He's playing the role of a Brahmana, right? He'll step into corporate through his writings and through his seminars and so on. He'll step into a corporate
heading.
Yeah, I'm not heading, but like a environment, right? He'll do a seminar for business leaders, right? Those are the Vaishyas, and he'll explain to them principles. Right? He's not just going to say, hey, you should invest in this and not invest in that. He's going to explain principles, right? Like the emotional bank account. That's his way of simplifying the principles down for a way that the business leader can understand, right? When you do something for your workers, even though it may not seem the most expedient thing because you're putting in extra time and money, the fact is that care is appreciated, and it's like a deposit in their emotional bank account. Trust grows, right? Their feelings of gratitude grow. And because of that, they actually work for you with greater enthusiasm. So although it may seem like you're losing, actually you're gaining. So it's always beneficial to care for another. That's a Brahminical principle, right? That's a principle that it comes from a mind that's not so caught up in making money. It comes from a mind that can step out of that context, be content and be peaceful, and begin to see these patterns, understand them from the sacred text, see them and how they work in this world, and then articulate them, communicate them to the business leader so that they say, that guy really knows what he's talking about. I never thought of it that way. I'm going to become a better leader. I'm going to become a better person. My workers are going to be more happy. Everyone benefits. That's the role of the Brahmana, right? And the same and he would also be advising the political leaders in the same way. We don't need to go to war right now. There are so many other ways that you could handle this, or whatever it may be. And so what has become the corruption of that, the modern day Brahmana in India, so-called Brahmana, where it might be someone just born in a particular family lineage that possesses none of the qualities, none of the contentment, none of the peace, none of the simplicity, none of the wisdom, none of the learning.
Because you got to work for that. You could get born into a good, right? You could be born into a very wealthy family in America, or a very knowledgeable family. Your parents are PhDs, but and they might educate you because they're very knowledgeable about maybe something mundane, but that doesn't give you the PhD. Just because my parents are heart surgeons, I can't say, Mara, bring in the heart patient. Like, what are you doing? You're not even a surgeon, Raghunath. Yeah, my parents are. Don't worry, I can take care of this. So I have to become qualified. Just because my parents are something doesn't make me that. It means I could have access to insider info. They can help me get into particular schools. So the same thing with the Brahmana, and Prabhupada was really adamant on this point. And truthfully, it makes sense. It actually just makes practical sense. You can't be born into that caste, but not actually work to be renounced and knowledgeable and realized. Realization comes from hearing knowledge and applying knowledge. Right. Or else you're just born into this family that has some knowledge. But we have to put all this stuff to practice, and that's what's going to make it real.
And so then you have had, and you continue to have in India, people that are claiming to be Brahmanas because of the family that they're born in, not possessing the qualities, including compassion, but claiming all the privilege and using their position as a tool of oppression. And therefore, there's a rebellion against it. Let's throw the baby out. Let's throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Yeah. But meanwhile, it's just like, no, just see. Just open your eyes. Just look at a guy like Stephen Covey. Okay, that's a person playing the role of a Brahmana. All we're saying is we need to train more people to think like that. We need to help them help other leaders in the business world and in the political world become more compassionate, more clear thinking, more living according to good principles, right? Communicating good principles. We need that in our society. So we don't need to throw out the whole conception. We just need to recognize we need to recognize the true, the true Varnashram Dharma, what it really means. And then we're actually on a way of, on a progressive path. And without it, the world just gets really messy. That's the point. All right. So then we came up we're moving up that ladder, through the different species, and then we got to humans, and then we got to humans that are living within the Varnashram system. And then we got to Brahmanas. And amongst all of those humans, the Brahmanas were considered to be the best. But it didn't stop there, right?
And better than him, who strictly follows the Brahminical principles, or better than him, who is liberated from all material contamination, and better than him.
No. Still going
32,
back a little bit.
Right? 32.
31 still. Okay, among the human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. That's the Varnashrama. And in that society, the intelligent ones who are designated as Brahmanas are the best. Okay? And among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best. Okay, one who really knows these sacred texts, because they are the source of the principles that we live by, right? But I may know it, I may have memorized it, but I may not have fully understood it, right? So it says, and among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of the Veda is the best. What is this really all about? And that's
where we going with all this stuff.
Yeah, that's why, like I've had many experiences where I've seen, like, say, someone like Radhanath Swami, right? He always gets it right to the essence, right? Like, someone will be asked to speak on a particular verse, let's say, and they take that verse and then they just start to go places with it, which really have more to do with their own
personal agenda or realization, or
the limit of their realization, or, as you're saying, maybe their agenda, they're pushing something that they feel strongly about, they're using the verse to justify it or something like that. But then you get someone that actually really understands much more deeply. They're reading something, they're understanding it more deeply, and then they show it to you. And then when they show it to you, say, oh, now it all clicks. Right now it all fits together. What that verse meant, I didn't even understand it. That person put it into context for me, and that person helped me understand what it is really, really directing us towards. So one who knows the actual purport of the Vedas is best. And then still deeper is not even that I just know it myself, but if my realization is deeper, then I can explain it to others. So better than the Brahmana who knows the purpose of the Vedas is the one that can dispel all doubts. Answer all your questions. And when we see that happen, when we feel that happen, that's a very powerful, it's just a very powerful dynamic when someone has that, when someone embodies that and can explain things that way. You know, it's really transformational.
32.
In the 32, and better. You can continue reading that, please.
Better than the Brahmana, who knows the purpose of the Vedas, is he who can dissipate all doubts. And better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles.
So then not only can I teach it, but I'm living it through everything that I do.
Better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination. And better than him is a pure devotee who executes devotional service without expectation of reward.
So there's a whole, that took us full circle, but let's just continue to climb up the ladder. So better than the one who knew the Vedas is the one who knew the purpose of them.
Yeah.
And better still was the one that could dissipate all doubts, can explain that to others. And better still is one that was fully living it. But all that along is, why am I living it? You know, is because it's going to get me to the point where I'm free from the influence, free from the external influences clouding my understanding, you know. And so that means that's called liberation, right? That no longer do the modes, material, nature affect me. No longer do they confuse me in terms of my own identity, thinking I'm this body. No longer do they confuse me in terms of what I think will make me happy, having me chase after the objects of the senses. I'm beyond all that. Now the yoga has all served its purpose. I'm free from these external influences. And that is an incredibly huge accomplishment, right? Like that is like a massive thing. But still, in one sense, it's still just a neutral platform, right? It means like, okay, the negative thing is it's kind of like if you have a plot of earth, let's say, but it's got, I don't know, weeds in it, or there's something wrong with it where you can't grow there. And so you remove all the weeds, great. Now you're free from the influence of the weeds. But it's just a neutral position until something starts to grow. And what is meant to grow in the heart? Ultimately, that's love of God, right? That's where we're meant to be delivered. And so here it says, better than one who is liberated from all material contamination. Better than him is the one who's liberated from all material contamination. And better than him is the pure devotee, right? Who executes devotional service, who executes bhakti without expectation of reward. I work solely on the basis of love. That's my only interest. That is my nature, and now it's fully uncovered. So we went up through the whole ladder up to that point.
Text 33, top of the ladder. Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine, and who therefore engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life, everything, unto me without cessation.
There it is, without cessation, right?
You know, there's just like a fear. We're suffering fear because I think we've been exploited and we've been hurt, and people of authority have betrayed us, and therefore the idea of a hierarchy is like, it goes against. We don't like it, and there's a fear like we're going to be exploited, But the idea is that we're not blindly giving ourselves to some higher authority. We see by their qualities how they live, and in that, you think of like what does a Brahmin have anyway? They have nothing. All they have is information. Right. A real Brahmana doesn't want anything from you.
Yeah,
they're just trying to give. They're teachers. They just want to give. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes meet these people in India, and people will say, they'll talk to you, do something, and then they'll ask for a donation. But then there's some people who come and talk to you and do something and share something with you, and then you want to give them a donation, but they're like, no, it's okay. I don't need anything. They actually just want to give some information. They see that you're a serious pilgrim, and you're in a holy place, and they just want to give some share some knowledge with you. So this is what the real Brahmanas are there for, and this is what we end up. That's what we're actually really attracted to, anyway.
Sure.
All right, text 34. Such a perfect devotee offers respect to every living entity because he is under the firm conviction that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered the body of every living entity as the supersoul or the controller. Such a perfect devotee offers respects to every living entity because they're under the firm conviction that the personality of Godhead has entered the body of every living entity as the supersoul or controller. We like to use the word dignity. We give dignity because we accept that God is in everybody's heart. And even people who are doing something you don't appreciate, we give them some type of dignity. And there comes to a time that your behavior towards that person who's even acting inappropriately, something will change within their heart when they see the way you behave. Then there's certain people who, no matter how much dignity you give them, they will take advantage of that, and they'll keep going further and further and try to crush you with their. And those people, you got to just keep at a distance, you know.
And we talked about that a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
My
know,
dear mother.
Let's stick with this. You know, I just hearing what you're saying right now. It is interesting, right? Because everything we're talking about, you know, there are concepts of religion, concepts of dharma, concepts of roles that we're meant to play, concepts of substance versus imitation in terms of spirituality, right? Because once you begin to lay down all the principles to follow and all the dharmic rules and regulations and so on, unless we're deep, we tend to engage those in ways that aren't helpful too, right? We're using them to judge others, and then, you know, we're no longer making any progress at all. Now, when we read these two verses, 33 and 34, right here, there's so much information here, just in these two verses, right? And in 33, it's explaining that of all people, it's God speaking, right? And God is saying that amongst all people, that those who have no selfish interest, but they engage everything in service of God. And in that sense, through everybody, because the next verse is going to make it clear that it's just not this God and everybody else is out of the picture, right? But that give themselves completely without any material selfish motivation. In other words, that's we're getting to the definition of love, right? Where I don't have any separate motive. That's the highest person. That's what we're meant to emulate. That's where our yoga is meant to go. It's meant to bring us to that stage, and then to clarify and to help us understand what that looks like in terms of other people and how we relate with them. Such a perfect devotee offers respects to every living entity, right? Because they're seeing something that others don't see. Because he is under the firm conviction that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered the body of every living being as the Supersoul. Right? So that's their vision. They're seeing something that they're aware of things that others aren't aware of, and now they're living this entirely pure. They have this. They're engaging with an entirely pure consciousness, both in their prayer and in their relationship with God, as well as with their service and the relationship with other human beings. And as you were saying that, I was thinking of that story of Magrari the hunter.
Yeah,
right?
Good story.
It's such an interesting story, right? There's so much to learn there. It's a story that there was this hunter who was, you know, generally like the hunter is going to, in Vedic lore, is going to be, you know, considered an unfortunate,
outcast.
Yeah, an unfortunate position to be in. And this hunter was beyond the normal hunter, though, because he wasn't hunting just out of the need for food, but he actually enjoyed watching the animals suffer. So he wouldn't even fully kill them, but he would half kill them, right? And so Narada Narada, who's like this traveling, you know, personification of bhakti yoga, sage, you know, meets him. And how did he respond to Magrari the hunter, right? Like, what instruction did he give him? You know, it seems like he should be rightfully condemned, the hunter, right?
Right.
But what he did was he asked him, he said, you know, if you're going to kill these animals, could you at least kill them entirely? Right? It was like,
right. You never think a saintly person is going to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And Magrari was like the Vlad the Impaler. You know Vlad the Impaler?
I'm not familiar with Vlad.
That's like the original. He was like the original Dracula, I think.
Vlad the Impaler.
He used to impale.
Does he have an Instagram page?
No, he's not alive now. He used to impale people, and then when people would go into the forest and they'd see people impaled, he would send a shocking message to the people who wanted to invade the country. I think, was he Romanian, Mara? Didn't you study this in private school?
I did not.
Vlad the Impaler, also called Vlad the Third of Romania.
Live?
Yeah, he'd impale them.
Wow.
He was real creepy. He's at the time of Lord Chaitanya. Is that unbelievable? 1476.
Okay.
In present day Bucharest, Romania. Okay, go on. That was a little bit of a squirrel.
Okay.
I guess that was an official squirrel right there.
So what Narada did was he had no ego of his own that he could engage in his condemnation of this brutal, half killer of animals. Right, this brutal masochist, right, or sadist. But he did whatever he could to bring him to the next stage, and so he dealt with him in a way where he didn't condemn him, but he just asked him, take one step. What step can this person practically take, right? If I told them to, leave hunting behind altogether and live a peaceful lifestyle, he's not ready for that. But so let me just ask this person: could you take one step forward? Think about it. Could you just kill them the whole way? And what happened was, because he dealt with him that way, as a Brahmana, as a Vaishnava, with compassion, no ego, only to serve God and to serve this person the best way that they could. Nothing getting in the way. No ego at all getting in the way. So that Magrari, he felt that. He felt his purity in that. And even from his own kind of very polluted state of understanding, he could recognize the goodness in Narada. So he followed his instruction. He stopped killing the animals like that, and he just kept going one step forward, inspired by the life of the Vaishnava, right? Inspired.
That's
by
where
his
we're at too. We're slowly getting led out of our material attachments and our material bad habits. We're slowly getting led back to the spiritual world.
Yeah.
One little baby step at a time.
Well, and then what eventually happened with Magrari?
What happened with him? Mara,
Well,
remember?
there's this.
I'm going to pass this to Mara. I'm going to pass this hot seat to Mara.
Well, there's a passage where it's described that Narada's with another sage. I forget who that sage was. But they're looking at Magrari, and he's walking down the street, and he kind of has his own cloth out, and he's kind of brushing it in front of him because he's become such a sensitive soul that he doesn't even want to step on any bug as he's walking down the street. Right? And it just shows the transformation. Even the most dented can transform. In the association of that person. That Narada wasn't merely religious and playing the role of a religious person, speaking the scripture without really understanding their purpose, using the religious or dharmic kind of paradigm or world that he was living in as a way to boost his ego, in condemning another or whatever, getting off on that. I've seen so much of that, in my own 30-something years of practice where, someone is, used to be that half the classes in ISKCON were just about condemning materialists, It's like, I've heard enough of this already. I can't take it anymore. Give me something that inspires me, to be a better person, not just something putting other people down. That may have more to do with the speaker than the actual people that he's speaking about. So Narada, just because he did he had no interest in condemning this person. All he was trying to do was help the person, and he had the maturity to understand how to help that person. And through that first simple kind of request, it led to him the complete transformation of Magrari the hunter. Okay.
We like you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, my friend.
Text 35. We're almost
35.
Maybe we stop there. Say 57.
My dear mother, daughter of Manu, a devotee. I should read in voice characters.
No, you.
My dear mother, O daughter of Manu.
Not Shakespearean voices or whatever that's supposed
A devotee
to be.
who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the personality, the supreme person, simply by bhakti yoga. I think it's more engaging if you read in the voice of the person.
Yeah. Well, what this verse says. I mean, it would be if you did it without doing it in silly ways. It would be. But, he says here, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga. So he's described two types of yoga in this chapter: Ashtanga yoga and Bhakti yoga. Ashtanga yoga, which involves all the different steps in order to get to that place where you go into a very deep state of meditation, and Bhakti yoga as being a way where one dedicates their everything, their body, their minds, and their words directly to God for the purpose of developing that love of God. He says through both of these yogas, you can achieve the supreme person. But understand that here, in this Ashtanga yoga, here in the translation says mystic yoga, it was always fixed on meditating on God, right? It wasn't meditating on a candle. It wasn't meditating. We read the descriptions of the form of God and so on that Kapila Dev was speaking about meditating on. So as long as you're bringing your mind to that supreme spiritual substance of Sri Krishna, then you're achieving the goal of yoga, one way or another. But for us, that mystic yoga will be very difficult to perform, and Bhakti yoga far more accessible. All right.
Lovely. Mara, what do we got? What do we got here? What can we take away from today? How can we apply it to this cheery or depressing Fonzie Christmas holiday season?
Well, I have some good ones today.
Okay.
We need to purify our motives.
Is that it?
Yes. Yeah.
Wonder facilitates love.
What does? Weather?
Wonder.
Wonder facilitates love, and weather does too. Springtime.
Wonder, gratitude, and appreciation advance our bhakti.
Wonder, gratitude, and appreciation advance our bhakti. Yes, it does. Yes, they do.
Marinate our minds in devotional service.
Yeah.
Tasty.
Bhakti mind is the new normal.
Bhakti mind is the new normal.
Don't try to change your culture, change yourself.
Yeah.
Give dignity to all living beings. And even the most dented can transform with association of a pure devotee.
Nice. Nothing about Fonzie. Nothing about Fonzie, huh?
Yeah, we love Fonzie too.
Thanks for everybody who's excited about the holidays.
I'll tell you something about Fonzie.
Suffering through the holidays. We love you. You're part of our family. Welcome to our dented can family. Our dysfunctional, but we're working on ourselves. We're working on ourselves to get a little bit more functional, and we're happy you're here, people. Thank you. And thanks to all the love you gave me yesterday. Prabhu, what else? What else about Fonzie? You going to squirrel me out here?
I went and I looked at that clip of that scene that you're talking about.
Oh, why don't you put it up on
YouTube?
On your the Wisdom of the Sages stories?
I don't know if I can put a YouTube clip up there.
Oh, there's a way to do it. I don't know how.
But it started with Fonzie. You see, like Richie Cunningham and his father out driving in the car, and then the car kind of broke down, so they drove into Fonzie's garage. And then Fonzie, and they needed to get home for Christmas Eve and all that. And Fonzie fixed the car, and then Mr. Cunningham took out money to pay for it. And Fonz was like, no. That's my gift to you. I don't want you to pay for that. Oh, and Mr. Sweet. Cunningham was like, no, I insist. And Fonzie's like, hey, I said, cool it. Cool it. Nerd. That's a
nerd. I think they invented nerd on Fonzie.
Nobody knew about it.
I've never said nerd until Happy Days.
Yeah. And so, but it was showing that, he wanted to express his love without any reward.
Are you saying Fonzie's a pure devotee?
I'm saying at least that it's in us all, it's in us all.
It's in us all, even in the Fonz.
Yeah. And then, I say this too.
And then, of course, Fonz, he was given back. He surrendered and he gave back by being invited to the Cunningham family Christmas.
That's true. And then not only that, he was honored at the table that he was asked to say the prayer, to say grace. And now Fonzie, he wasn't like learned in the Bible, but he expressed the essence of the prayer, because he just looked up at the sky and he said, because you could see he was going to be all alone, right? And now he was brought into this loving family atmosphere. And so he just looked up and he said, thanks, God. Like, that was it, right? So he didn't have like, he wasn't able to quote scripture or whatever.
You
but
can find purports even in Happy Days, because you'll be quite impressed.
Well, then but
your next test is, can you find deep spiritual purports in Laverne and Shirley. That is your next test.
What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hops and Pepper Incorporated. We're gonna do it.
But you know, when Fonzie said that prayer, the camera cut over to Mrs. Cunningham, and she was just like very satisfied with that prayer. Like, yes, Fonzie.
You know, all the Christmas episodes were wonderful of all of our favorite
except
sitcoms.
for Peanuts.
Oh, the Peanuts one. It was a little depressing. Actually, and they got that little tree, that little sad tree that Charlie Brown picked up, but then they decorated at the end. It's somehow transformed.
They sang the carols branches. At the end.
Huh?
Didn't they all stand around the tree and sing at the end in that sad way?
It's always a little sad. It's always a little sad. Even my kids, I played it for my kids, and they were like, "This is sad."